So we're now joined by SABC News Correspondent Nick Harper, and he joins us now via our video link. Nick, thank you so much for your time this evening. Now, we've seen that shouting match that took place today in the Oval Office. Maybe give us the latest. It seemed like a very tense meeting.
Very tense. I think we'd be putting it mildly. It was incredible scenes in the Oval Office earlier. I've never seen anything quite like this. A major breakdown in diplomacy, devolving into a shouting match between the US president and the Ukrainian leader, with the US vice president also weighing in. The two US leaders really rounding on the Ukrainian president, accusing him of being ungrateful and disrespectful. Ungrateful for the US support over the last 3 years, with Vice President J.D. Vance asking him if he had said thank you for that support. Donald Trump also going on to suggest that he had been disrespectful during the course of that meeting, and then after it all fell apart quite so spectacularly, he was, we're told, along with the Ukrainian delegation, ejected from the White House. An official suggesting that Donald Trump asked the Ukrainian delegation to leave, which meant that the rare earths deal that the Ukrainian leader was here to sign was scrapped. The planned joint press conference was called off, and Volodymyr Zelenskyy had to leave the White House, his tail between his legs, and with a stinging rebuke from the US president, who posted on social media afterwards, he can come back when he is ready for peace. Now, we saw Mr. Zelenskyy fire back on social media, suggesting that Ukraine needs just and lasting peace, and that is exactly what he is working for. But undoubtedly, this is not the direction the Ukrainian leader would have wanted today's meeting to go, with it devolving into a shouting match, really not just the train coming off the rails, but a full-on train wreck.
Now, Nick, you are saying that you've never seen something like this take place. Some of us have also never seen this ever take place. And one would say, is it normal, for two presidents to be arguing during a press briefing?
Well, I think it could be that they are, at odds when they're behind closed doors. There might be raised voices in a private setting, but certainly what leaders do not want to do is air their dirty laundry, as they did, in public, in front of the world's media, during an exchange that lasted about 45 minutes, that last 10 or 15 minutes or so, becoming very ugly, with raised voices, finger pointing, really both sides making it very clear that they were sticking to their position as things went horribly wrong. But no, it is not normal, especially in this type of situation. What we've seen earlier in the week with other presidential visits here, with world leaders coming to the White House, with Emmanuel Macron of France on Monday, with the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Thursday, was a very different tact. Both of them used flattery as a way to try and win Donald Trump around. Now, President Zelenskyy is known for being a bit more prickly in nature, more blunt with his words. It's known that he and Mr. Trump don't particularly get along, but there certainly didn't seem to be any of that flattery at play from the Ukrainian president. It seems that he didn't really want to try and get Donald Trump on side, but also suggestions that all of this, quite simply, was a setup, an ambush that had been devised by the US president and the vice president to try and bring all of this to a very abrupt end.
And Nick, listening to that clip a bit earlier on, one could clearly hear Donald Trump, the US president, saying the words of, you are gambling with World War III. What do you make of some of those statements? It's quite a strong statement.
Yeah, very strong statements, and others from the US president, in which he also said, you're either going to make a deal or we're out. He said that the Ukrainians might try and fight on, but again, repeating this idea of them not having the cards to be able to fight on or to be able to make a very strong deal. And then also saying that President Zelenskyy was not acting at all thankful. He said that that's not a nice thing. One of the closing remarks of this entire exchange by the US president was, this is going to make great television. And yes, it certainly has. It has made an exchange for the ages, something that will undoubtedly be remembered. But I think we also have to remember the Ukrainian people, because in many respects, the Ukrainian leader was here to try and safeguard the future of his country, to try and do a deal that might have created some sort of peace in his country, even if it was not an advantageous peace for the Ukrainian people. With all of this in tatters, with the US president making it very clear he wants no part in Ukraine, there is a real question mark this afternoon as to the future of Ukraine, the future of the Ukrainians who are fighting in this conflict. What comes next for them if there is no US support, and certainly no willingness for US support in the future?
And certainly, what does this mean for the people of Ukraine? At the same time, Nick, one would ask, I mean, following such a heated exchange between the two leaders, was there any agreement reached in that regard?
No, the main agreement that they needed to come out of today, the whole reason for President Zelenskyy coming here was to try and sign that rare earths deal, something that Donald Trump has been pushing very hard for, the ability for the United States to extract rare earth minerals used in high-tech development from Ukraine, to be able to use them in US manufacturing. Now, President Zelenskyy was saying that he needed security guarantees. That was the side of the bargain that he wanted, some sort of US involvement for the future of Ukraine to safeguard it. Donald Trump was saying, look, with the US being involved, that in itself is implicit that the US will help to prop up Ukraine, but he certainly wasn't suggesting any military support, the very thing that President Zelenskyy was looking for. So there were many Europeans who were worried about this deal, looking at it and saying that President Zelenskyy was going to get the raw side of the deal. But even if it had been achieved, it would have been an opportunity for the two countries to work together, to move towards some sort of peace deal, the preliminary steps at least towards it. But that deal is in tatters, and therefore any possibility of next step forwards, whether it includes security guarantees or not, seems to be completely destroyed as a result of what took place in the Oval Office this afternoon.
And where does this place now the war between Ukraine and Russia, particularly when it comes to support from the US for Ukraine?
Well, obviously, the US has been the main military backer of this Ukraine conflict, of Ukraine during the course of this conflict. Europe has helped as well, but in many respects, it has been the United States, its military support, its humanitarian aid, its physical weaponry that has helped to prop up Ukraine against Russia. There are already dwindling supplies, problems with troops getting deployed to the places that they need to be in Ukraine, with filling the spots of Ukrainian soldiers who've been killed. It's not as if Ukraine is winning this war without US support. It makes it even harder for them to be able to continue the fight. They need that weaponry from the United States. Volodymyr Zelenskyy knows that, and part of this meeting today was meant to be trying to win Donald Trump around to supplying weapons, something that, of course, he has ruled out for many months. When he was campaigning to be president again, that was one of his key pledges, not to supply Ukraine with more arms, suggesting that the US under Joe Biden had wasted billions and billions of dollars propping up Ukraine. He really wanted no part in the future conflict, and therefore he was trying to find other deals, an economic deal, this rare earths deal. But it is a huge question. What happens next, and essentially how long can Ukraine continue to fight on the battlefield if it doesn't have the military support that the US up until now had been providing?
Nick, thank you so much for that update. That is Nick Harper, SABC News correspondent there, just giving us an update when it comes to a historical moment really taking place in the Oval Office between US President Donald Trump as well as Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelenskyy.